Going for a take. Take one. Action.
We are going for a take where we get the take of those who work in the film and TV industry on a specifically chosen film and their time in the business.
Yep, and today's take is on the new Mad Max film, Furiosa.
And in today's take, we're joined by Isabelle Smith. Her credits include Maternal. She's currently working on Hollyoaks. She's worked on Coronation Street. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me. How are all of you
It's a
guys?
pleasure.
Yeah, it's good
good,
to have you here,
good.
dude. Nice to properly meet you, same circles and that, but it's good to put a face to a name.
It is. I
Yeah.
feel like we're Instagram friends.
Yeah.
And now
Yeah.
we've
it's
met.
Now we're
I
real
don't know
friends.
And now we're friends.
Exactly.
And of course, we all went to see Mad Max Furiosa. Yes. So what was everyone's take on it?
Do you know what? When I went in, I was like, oh my God, this is going to be like blood fighting. It's not going to be for me. And then I came out and I was like, I really enjoyed that. And that was about so much more than guns and blood and all of that. And it actually was about like femininity and feminism and like the divide between men and women. And obviously there's so much more. But when I was watching it, I was like, I've been so small-minded that I never thought that I would watch a film like this and enjoy it. And now I'm like a fan.
Sick.
Do you know what?
Yeah.
I agree with you because,
Yeah.
for me, I was thinking, oh no. I've never watched any of the Mad Maxes.
No, neither had
And I
I.
was like,
Yeah.
So I watched Fury Road and I thought it was
Yeah.
all right. But I was like, there wasn't enough dialogue for me. I
Yeah.
love where there's dialogue and then silences. There was a lot of silences.
There was.
And in Furiosa, there was thankfully a lot more dialogue. And for me, like watching it, I just thought it was such a powerful film to watch because there's so much going on. Everything happens for a reason, even the smallest minute detail in the
Yeah.
background. And you're just like, wow, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it really explored the differences between the two tribes. We didn't really get to see much of the tribe that Furiosa was originally from, but it appeared like she came out from this paradise that was green and lush and full of fruit, and the people there were like a community, and they relied on the use of animals and nature. Whereas when she got kidnapped by this biker gang, they were more like the tribe. You know, they were cannibals basically. You know, they had human skeletons that they used as chains and as weapons, and like they wore like masks and outfits that intimidated and like terrified people.
Definitely seemed like there was a big contrast between, like you say, that green place and then when she meets all these like tribal people. It was interesting when you brought up like femininity and that, because obviously it occurred to me, but I hadn't thought about it too much in depth. But just looking back now, in the green place, you only really see the women.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it's based on like a matriarchal society or whatever. And then obviously you go into like the place, the wastelands, and it's all like men taking advantage of like the wives that Morton Joe has. It's more stereotypically masculine in terms of its I don't know how to say it, I guess. When people think of men and it's sort of negative aspects of men, it's like anger and rage and
Like the toxic masculinity.
toxic masculinity, exactly. So when you were watching in terms of the femininity and the sort of aspects that was portraying, what were you sort of thinking?
So I think right at the start, obviously, Furiosa, she gets ripped away from her family and from her mother, and she's got all of that pain. And I think she kind of grows up when we see Anya Taylor-Joy take over. I feel like we see that she's lost this childhood, and she kind of lost herself when she was a child because she had it ripped away from her, and now she's kind of having to, well, she disguises herself as a male, doesn't she? You know, and you see her like cutting away her hair, and she's trying to get rid of all of these things that make her feminine to seem more powerful and more masculine. And then, but you see, like, I arguably think the most powerful moment for me was when she was on that big truck.
The big truck.
The big truck.
Big truck.
And her hair was just like blowing in the wind, and she was just doing all these things that these men, you know, they were being killed and what have you. And then she just comes up like this goddess, and she arguably looked the strongest there when she looked the most feminine,
the most like furious, most intimidating.
Yeah,
without having to put on
without
masks
having
and all
to
this
like
stuff.
exactly. And I just thought, yeah, that's what that's about. Because like, I'm afraid of you. Like, you're doing all of this, and you know, and yeah.
I think as well, like that moment was so powerful, and then the moment after it was also powerful, because it's the one moment in the film where there's just silence. There's nothing going on. It's just her looking around thinking, what's she going to do now? Her identity's been revealed. She feels vulnerable yet powerful. For me, like, seeing that and seeing how she then goes to take control and sort of dominate everybody else through just being herself. Because before, it felt like she was purposely being submissive so that she wouldn't be seen. And that was an important transition to make, because Furiosa, this like dark angel, which they refer to her as, it's for her, in order to be like that, this feared person, she has to be just herself. And it's powerful to watch.
It's very dangerous to not only just be a woman, but also like a what do you call it, like a full-born.
I think I'd love to talk about the costumes, because the costumes for me were what stood out in that film, because every costume was different. It wasn't like they all wore the same suits. If they were wearing a lot of clothes, because some of them weren't, if they were wearing a lot of clothes, those clothes would be made from items which you wouldn't necessarily think could be worn as clothes. For example, you see at the start when they're trying to get Furiosa back, she's wearing a skull, and then the jawbone's like down here. And then there's another moment in the film where this guy is wearing, one of the big leaders is wearing a gas mask on his groin. And I was like, what's the point?
What's going on there?
So I was like, do you want to explain to us about that? And then I was watching
She's
this.
got some kind of complex going on.
Something going on.
George Miller wrote like a 20-page essay on it, but like we won't see that.
Isn't it? And you know what? I'm glad we won't see it, because it makes you then think, why? And that's like, for me, that's the purpose of watching films, is to think why. If it's all given to you on a plate, it's boring. And like you see with some of the other characters, like a golden nose, he's called like the man eater, or the people eater, and then there's another one, obviously, we'll call him Joe, the guy with the orange thing behind his head. I couldn't figure out what it was.
Mask on as well. It was like a breathing thing, because every time he breathed, it moved, didn't it? So I didn't know if it was.
I saw that and I just kept thinking Jabba the Hutt. Like,
He gives us that vibe.
He gave off Jabba the Hutt vibes, and I hated him.
I didn't like him. I couldn't warm to him.
Yeah, he was just something about him which I didn't like, and that's credits to the actor who played him, because is it Lockie Hume? Is it?
Yeah, I'm not too sure how to pronounce his name, but yeah.
Yeah, because to really dislike someone and then understand them is a hard thing to do in cinema, and he's not in the film for a very long time, considering the film's like 2.5 hours. He's not in the film for a long time, and yet you learn so much about him. And then obviously he took the role from the guy from Fury Road, I believe. So then to have the transition but still be the same character but with a different actor, that's skillful.
I really liked Chris Hemsworth's character, Dementus. He was like this charismatic, like evil leader. Like he was a scumbag, but people were drawn to him because of his charisma. And he turns up in this land, and he refers to his I think one of his generals, called the Octopus, says, "This is the land of opportunity, my friend." And then he turns up to the Citadel, thinking that he's going to lay siege. He's like, "We're going to lay siege on you," and he's in his chariot that's being pulled by motorbikes, and they all revving at the same time to like signal a war horn. So, but the Immortum Joe's other general, who's basically like a Winston Churchill, says, "Choose one of your warriors. Choose a warrior to fight you." And he goes, "All right, I'll choose him." And then this guy just zip lines across and then jumps and sort of like kamikaze suicide bombs him. And then he realizes just what he's dealing with. And Winston Churchill goes, "They're all mad. They're all they'll all give their lives willingly. So you're kind of messed up coming in. Think you're gonna lay siege, which I found that whole scenario hilarious.
Yeah, it was bizarre, wasn't it? And yeah, Chris Hemsworth in this, like, I think he was kind of the highlight for me, just because you could see how much like fun he was having playing just this kind of crazy character. George Miller was saying when he was casting him that Chris Hemsworth has this kind of like fidgety kind of personality. Like he's quite comedic. You kind of see it when he's playing Thor at the start. He's all stoic and like serious and that. And then they kind of move to like Taika Waititi directing him in like Love and Thunder and Ragnarok. And all of a sudden Thor becomes a bit of a comedy character. But you see it in his interviews with Chris that he does have that kind of erratic sort of nature about him. And it's nice seeing him lean into that some more as opposed to just being, yeah, I'm a man and I'm big and muscular and I'm a hero or whatever. Yeah. And it was so playfully done with so many layers and so many ways you could interpret his backstory, his personality. We were chatting before about the teddy bear that he has sort of, again, dangling against his groin. And
it's a theme here.
Yeah, there's a theme. I don't know. George, like, have a think about the symbols in your films. But yeah, there's an interview where he's talking about how the teddy bear is used in a way where it's, George Miller's quoting as saying, nothing is an accident. Everything has a meaning in this film. Every single piece of costume, like you were saying, every single piece of set, car, everything was taken because it has a reason for it. And then it's up to the audience to interpret it however they want, which I really like as a way where it's not going to hand it to you on a silver platter. These characters aren't, although they might come across initially as like pantomime villains, there's a lot more substance to them. You never know how you will end up when you spend however many years in the wasteland, see everything, lose everything, what that would do to a person when you don't have all the natural resources. Obviously, like he's called Dementus, he's demented. Yeah, he loses it.
It's the thing I liked about Chris Hemsworth's character was the journey he goes on, and also the accent, which I'll get to in a sec because there's something really interesting about his accent. The journey he goes on to, you see this charismatic monster at the start, and you never really see Chris Hemsworth play villains. No. So it was good to see him play a villain. And you see his ruthlessness when he gives away what he called his daughter, Furiosa, for the gas town, yeah. So you see that and you're like, okay, this guy is a nasty piece of work. He's in it for the power, and he has the power. And then when he tried to take Bullet Town as well, I believe it was called, then that's his downfall because he's taken too much, and that's what kills him.
And at the end of it, you sort of feel sorry for him. Yeah. Like you see like why all these people are messed up in the head, him specifically, but then you understand his reasoning. Like you don't know his past, but he sort of hints at it and how he lost his family and his loved ones and why he's messed up in the first place. So it's like you're conflicted between hating this piece of filth and wanting Furiosa to have a revenge, but you also feel sorry for him.
Yeah.
And then also on the accent, because this is something I found really interesting. We talked about on the last episode, like basing it off an animal. He based his accent off an animal. It was a seagull.
No way.
Yeah. Really? He was out with his kids, he said. And a seagull is quite obnoxious. Yeah. So, and the voice is quite like pestering, it's annoying. And he was like, that's the animal I want to base it off, the accent. And also his granddad, who had a very very strong Australian nasal accent. So seeing that and seeing how that has been put in his work, because his actual accent's quite deep, his normal accent's quite deep, so hearing him play this nasal accent, I think it added to the character and took away from Chris Hemsworth, which is
And seagulls take what they want, don't they?
They do.
You gotta like strangle him sometimes.
I know.
Actually, I remember
I've seen some videos.
Yeah, but then on to like we've talked about the costume and props. Were there any characters that stood out for you, Izzy?
Oh God, really like the relationship between Furiosa and he's called Jack something. What was that?
Praetorian Jack.
Yes. I thought their chemistry was something that wasn't in the film anywhere else. They had quite a they cared for each other, and I feel like he was maybe one of the only male characters to take her seriously and to like know her power and know her worth. And at first I think she found that quite hard to trust and to kind of let her walls down. And then when she drove away, when he was like, right, you can go now, when he sorted the car out for her and she had the motorbikes and the weapons, and he was like, you know, you can go now, you're done here. And the fact that she just turned around and was like, no, I'm not going to leave you. I think then he was like, whoa, like, no one else would have done that for me. Like, they're all saying that they're going to sacrifice themselves and they're all willing to die for, you know, but then they all seem to run away. So, and she like turned around and stood and was like, no, I'm not going to leave you. And I thought that was quite nice.
Yeah, I mean, Praetorian Jack was
Yeah.
an interesting character
Yeah.
because at first you don't like him. Like, for me, I didn't like him.
No,
he was very
I
quiet,
didn't, yeah.
didn't say much. And then when you see the end, when he starts talking, and it's like, actually, this guy is human like the rest of them. Because a lot of them, even though they were human, were savages. Or when they were interested in clay and stuff, and them trying to take over the truck, or whatever you want to call it.
I think I just named it the
war
truck.
rig or
Don't know
something.
what it
Yeah, it's the
is.
truck now.
The big truck.
The big truck with swinging things at the back of it. You see these savages, and then you really see some like humane qualities in some people, which they could have been seen as savages. Like Furiosa, don't get me wrong, she's the protagonist, but she has qualities which are like, yeah, you could also take that as like the antagonist.
Yeah, 100%.
And when her arm got ripped off, that was grim.
I really like the names of the characters as well. Like the Immortum Joe's two sons is called Rectus and Scrotus.
See, I laughed at that in the cinema. No one else did, and I was like, okay.
They should have the old
man
giving a description of what a scrotum and erectus is. But also
Do you want to give a description, Adam?
the Mentus's soldiers who are named after like bikes, like Harley and Davidson and and
I didn't even
what the other
figure
ones?
that out.
But yeah,
that's
really
mad.
good, subtle, nice little details, which I quite like.
Speaking of sort of details, I have to say this because I was so impressed with myself for getting this, right? It sounds mad, but just wait till you hear
What
this.
is this gonna
just
be?
wait till you hear this.
No.
I was like, what?
So it's actually great, right? So there was a moment in the film where they show a painting of some girls in the water and then a guy on the land trying to get some water.
Yeah.
And that painting's called Hylas and the Nymphs. And I saw the painting instantly because I was like, I recognise that painting. And then my mind went, that's in Manchester Art Gallery.
Is it?
Yeah. Hylas and the Nymphs. And I was just like, it summarises the film because in the painting, there's one guy and about, I think, 5 girls. And the guy's on the land and the girls are in the water. And yet the girls, for me, seem to have the power, like Furiosa does in the film, whereas the guy is almost trapped, even though he's on the land, because he wants something so valuable, and all of those girls, I want to say nymphs, are in the thing that was so valuable, which was water. And in the film, water is what was valuable. So you see in Fury Road at the start of it, when they let the water down and everyone's scavenging to try and get some water, and then Immortus Joe was like, the more water you have, the more greedy you become, so you shouldn't have water.
It's kind of all about like resource management, isn't it?
Yeah.
When I was reading up on when they did the original trilogy with Mad Max 2 and the Beyond the Thunderdome, they made the first Mad Max and it was kind of a lot of things made the film what it had to be because of like budget cuts and restraints and stuff. And then between the first and the second one, they went into, now we need to make a backstory. So he hired another dude. I think he was a comic book writer. I'm not quite sure exactly. But then he went back and then looked at, what could have caused this apocalypse, this sort of dystopian world, and looked back at, I think it's the 1979 oil crisis between Saudi Arabia and I want to say Iran. Yeah, Iran, which eventually like got sorted, like ended in peace. But they were like, what if it didn't end in peace? What if the war carried on and then all the oil fields were just like on fire? And then this caused this crisis where like oil like quadrupled and then quadrupled again, and then everyone started implementing that martial law, and like society just collapsed. And that's how they kind of thought that eventually it gets to this point where fuel's revered, cars are like immortalized as these vestiges of a godlike culture like in the past. It's just insane, the imagination that these people have, and all you need to do is have a problem where you go, okay, well now we need to make a history and a backstory for everything. And you look at one little thing, and that one little thing of inspiration is what creates a whole. I was watching it and I was thinking, this is a universe that every single person in this has a point to it. Every single person has a reason for them being there. Again, the YouTube video you sent me earlier, I can't remember what it was, but it was George Miller like dissecting it all, and he was looking back at certain historical videos or pictures. And in this film, Chris Hemsworth is in a chariot with motorbikes, and then the picture itself is from, I want to say, like 1930, and it's a bunch of policemen on a chariot with motorbikes in front of them. Again, once cars and motorbikes were starting to become like a normal thing, or like with this new amazing gadget, like this was a legit thing. You watching the film, you go, yeah, that never happened. That's no one would ever do that, but they did. It's just like history repeats itself in a way where they don't even realize it's happening. It's this fascination with something that feels so godlike again. It's just so cool. Like George Miller is just a genius, and all the people around him definitely as well.
Because I think as well, when you look at everything, not even just in this film, in anything, there's a truth to everything. There's a truth to him being on a chariot being pulled by motorbikes. There's a truth to like every single person that was even in the background, and they were all like fighting. Like they've all got their own truths and their own narrative that they're trying to like fit into this wasteland. And I mean, if you look at the film and then you look at like what's happening in the world today, like there's like parallels, and in the film they were always like, there's always going to be war, there's always going to be fighting, and truth. There is.
I really appreciate how they used do you know, on the war rig, the little dude in the back of the van, he was social on social media, he was trending because
I remember when he went viral.
But they took him and gave him like the perfect role in this movie, which I really respect.
They did that with another guy as well. I can't remember his name, but he's also from Australia. I remember I saw him on a social media video. He came to Manchester to obviously watch United. And it was a touching moment when I saw him in the film, because I remember watching an interview with him, because he said he had to go to the hospital every week for a medical condition, and the doctors, like the joy he was giving about these doctors who would basically save his life every week. And then seeing him in that, I was like, oh, that was a nice touching moment. An Australian guy in an Australian film, who's been on a very, very incredible journey. Do you know what else for me in that film was a big standout? It was the score.
Yeah.
And I know we talked about the score last week. So I don't want to repeat myself, but the
it was
score in
difficult
this
for me
was,
not to hear the score in this
the
one.
score,
it was so loud.
It was so loud, wasn't it?
the score mixed with the revs of the engines as well.
Yeah.
And feeling it in your heart like you're at a nightclub.
No.
Like that, it gives you this this thrill, which when you watch it and then feel it at the same time, not just from the emotions, but also from the speakers vibrating because the noise is that loud, and then the score and the war drums, and always feeling like something's gonna happen and something is gonna go wrong, because that's what a lot of the film was. And then when we talked about like the silence, then you're like, what is that silence?
I was like this. Well, I kid you not, I came home and took 2 ibuprofen because I had a headache from like the noise and shit, but in like the best way. I had a headache just from like the noise and the pressure. But then when it was silent, I was like, I don't like it. Like, give me noise again.
Give me noise,
I was like, I mean, my head was like, thank you. But my body, I was like, what? I hate this. Like, someone's going to come out or what have you. But as soon as that engine started revving and whatever, I was like, oh God, he's here again. Like a bloody seagull. I was like, he's here again. Like, here we go.
Back for the ice cream.
He's back. Like, literally, every time you heard those revs, something in me was like, oh God, not again. Like, can you not just let them just be okay? Like, you know, just let them have a moment and get away. And it was like this whole like circular narrative. Like, we started with these revs and then we literally ended with them again. And I was like, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the music almost replaced the dialogue. Again, he talks about how he uses an Alfred Hitchcock quote where he says that this movie would be able to be watched without subtitles in Japan.
Yes.
So the whole point of it is that the music can tell you the story, can tell you the emotion, because it's universal. And I also really rate the fact that there isn't that much dialogue in it. Again, when you were talking about the relationship and that before, I was like, how interesting to watch a relationship unfold without there necessarily being like, you know, I love you too, or whatever.
But you didn't need that, and I think if that was there, it would have completely ruined it, and it would have turned it into something else that it didn't need to be. Yeah. And I saw someone wrote a review or something about it, and I was reading it, and it was so true. They said Anya Taylor-Joy, everything is her eyes. Like, she had she was covered for half of the film. Like, her mouth was covered and her nose was covered. All you could see were her eyes, but that's all you needed. Like, she acts beautifully just with the eyes. And I was like, yeah, like, I don't even remember watching, really. And, like, I didn't... Sorry, I keep knocking this mic. I didn't even really, like... When words were coming out of her mouth, I was like, you don't even need it at this point. Like, everything that she's saying is being communicated just through her eyes, which was lovely.
Yeah.
It's the heart and soul of acting is the eyes. It's
the windows to the soul.
Yes, they are.
What was it? Al Pacino said something. It was like, if you can't see it behind my eyes or something, then it's not acting, something like that. I mean, I might be butchering the quote.
It sounds right. I don't know. It sounds good.
Yeah, it was a good quote until I said it. But I think there's one last point I want to make on this film, which was the journey of, for me, like the Garden of Eden. At the start, the Greenland, and then you go back to it at the end, in the wasteland, the start of a Greenland, of the tree growing out of Dementus.
He's growing out of his crotch.
Again, there we go. That's a theme.
So, George Miller, what's going on? but it grows out, and then there's a peach at the end of it. Oh, this sounds so wrong. And that for me was like the fruits of her labour. I can't say this seriously. The fruits of her labour, because.
So there's this one part in the movie where after she flees Dementus, and she goes back to the Citadel, she winds up with those cannibals, but she escapes them and reveals herself to the Citadel and tells them I'm Furiosa, and they help her out, but they don't seem to capture her or put her back in with the wives. They just sort of let her hang about. Like, I don't quite understand.
I mean, there will be a reason behind it.
I'm trying to think back to the film when that happens, because that's when she goes up to the sort of war council and says, "This is what's happening." But at any point has obviously she earned the respect of Praetorian Jack, and the sort of romance and stuff that ensued through that. But was there a moment, any other point in the film, where she did sort of get an acknowledgement from the war council and the sort of higher ranks?
I don't think until that moment.
Yeah,
and even then, even then when she went forward and was like, no, they're trying to trick you, they're trying to fool you, they still didn't believe her until one of them men said, oh no, it could be right. And then they all went, yeah. And then believed her after that. But yeah, but apart from that, there was no kind of...
Because she escaped, and they were sort of like chasing her, looking for her.
Yeah, and then it was
and he pulls her up and said, where have you been this whole time?
Yeah, and that was
and
it.
Then they
Maybe it was
don't acknowledge her after that. Like,
was that the guy that fancied her like earlier on as well?
No, the big guy.
The Scrotus.
No, I think...
Say that one more time.
Rectus? Rectus? Sorry, there's so many of them.
Yeah, anyway, Izzy, what were you saying?
I don't know now.
Just throwing her off now.
No, I think it was just... was it just a randomer?
I think one of the soldiers.
Just a guy.
Where have you been this whole time? And pulls her up. Takes her to the ward council. And Immortan Joe is just like...
Hello.
Right,
maybe it's out of shock. Maybe
you don't even acknowledge her arm or anything. It's hanging off. She's bleeding all over the floor.
Oh, yeah.
Standard.
Nothing. They're just like.
wasted.
Well, they get her a new arm eventually, right?
Oh no, she built it herself.
Oh, actually, yeah.
Does
That
look
arm
nice.
is crazy. I mean, I saw the bit when she like revs like a chainsaw.
I mean, she's a woman of many talents.
Literally,
She can do everything.
in it.
What about
Yeah.
you, my dude?
Um.
Because you said you weren't really expecting to go into it. To
Yeah,
enjoy
no,
it.
I wasn't, and I think that was like genuinely my preconceptions of like I don't like action films, and you know I'm not really going to be into this. So I was sat there like this thinking, oh, I'm going to hate this, and then as soon as it started, I was like, okay, quite like it, and then it got into it, and I was like, no, like now I'm watching it. Now I'm not like thinking about watching it and why I'm watching it. I'm actually in it, and I liked it. Was there anything I didn't like? Yeah, I think for me as well that I didn't understand that bit, the same bit that you were talking about, Adam. I thought, oh, have I missed something here? Like it jumped, and I was like, okay, and then. It took me, this is probably just me, it took me a moment to realise that we'd gone from Furiosa being a kid to them being older. The wig was like growing out the tree in the thing, wasn't it?
Oh yeah.
And I was like, oh, time's going to have passed now. And then I still thought it was the same person, but it wasn't. So that's not something I didn't really dislike about it. That was just me being a bit silly. Yeah, overall, I really enjoyed it, and I, probably would go and watch another one.
Nice. I think the only thing which I'd be really critical with, because I was the same. When I was watching it, and I was like, when we were choosing the films for the next lot of episodes, I was like, Mad Max. I've never really grown up on it, so I don't know whether it would be like if you didn't grow up on Marvel, you might not appreciate Marvel. I thought it was going to be the same for Mad Max, but actually, like watching it, I was impressed with the detail and how it all came together. And I think it was 10 years in the making, I believe. Like it was a very long time they had this film being made for. And my only criticism was that it was too long.
Yeah,
It
I got a bit
felt so
fidgety
long.
at the end.
I feel like it could have been down to 2 hours, not 2.5.
If any of you played the game as well, Mad Max, you would have understood a lot of the references.
Okay, in what way?
Like the names of the fortresses, like Gastown, whatnot. But like in the game, like there was a lot of vehicles that were in the game and like locations and whatnot. But yeah, the game had a whole lot more detail.
Cool, to like flesh it out.
Yeah, to understand what was happening and going on and what they were doing in the film.
That makes sense, because some of it I was like, there's nothing that's sort of taught us. Like in films you watch, usually there's like a prelude to why it's like that. In that, it didn't really feel like part of it's made sense to me, but I never really played that many games as a kid, so that probably makes a lot of sense.
They basically had these fortresses that was like harvesting oil, and then they like, I think Gastown was like a headquarters for people to go and like refuel and buy resources
see, that
and
makes
trade
a
with
lot more
people.
sense.
But it sort of went bad, and everyone started cannibalizing each other because they ran out of resources.
Like in the film, basically.
And they refused to carry on giving more resources to Immortan Joe, who basically decided to go to war.
Interesting.
It would be cool to like go back to the original trilogy and go watch those and play the game. And
Mel Gibson.
Furiosa was going to be an anime at one point. They had that script written back in they had Fury Road written in 2001. And then it didn't work out, and then it didn't work out again. And Heath Ledger was going to star in it instead of Tom Hardy. Heath Ledger was going to be Max in Fury Road.
Oh, wow.
So loads of things. I feel like now we've watched this, I feel like all of us maybe we should go and do a
Maybe we
little like
should
cinema
watch
screening.
it.
Special 3-part episode for Mad Max.
What time is it, Ben?
It's time for film association.
All right, let's do it.
Oh, okay, right.
Okay. Oh, I get the butterflies going every time you say it.
Innit? You better win this time. Who are we choosing?
Jennifer Lawrence. I'm nervous, and I've picked this person.
And I'm screwed because I don't know any of her films.
Yeah,
Do
sorry,
I
you have to
start?
start.
I'll kick it off with Joy.
Ooh. No hard feelings.
X-Men First Class.
The Hunger Games.
The Hunger Games Catching Fire.
Oh, wow.
Don't Look Up.
Passengers?
Yeah.
When you went down, I thought you were about to be
Yeah, I
like,
said,
don't look
"Don't
down.
Okay. X-Men Second Class. That'll be the next one.
Huh?
But nah,
I thought you were about to be serious then.
No,
You
no,
should be
right.
disqualified.
Insurgent.
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 Garden Party.
Is it called like Cold Bones or something?
You're nearly there.
Oh, Ice
Think
Bones?
cold, chilly, a season.
Freezing Bones?
A
I think I
season.
might be out with this.
You keep going. You're nearly
Winter
there.
Bones.
Yes, there
Win-
you go.
Winter Bones?
Yeah.
Gotta stay in. Yes. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Matt.
Ah, really? Already? Hunger Games: How to Kill a Mockingbird. Is that one? Part one?
How to Kill a Mockingbird?
How to Kill a Mockingjay.
Are you
There
mixing
we go.
up?
It's not, it's just called Mockingjay.
Mockingjay, let's go.
Okay. Mockingjay Part 2.
Great.
What else is Jennifer Lawrence? Oh, Hustle. American Hustle.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, right.
I feel like you peaked with How to Kill a Mockingbird.
No, there's another one she's in.
Yeah, there is.
Is she in the Lego movie? Is she in that? Am I wrong?
I don't know.
I have no
I'm just
idea.
gonna go out because I feel like if I say any more films, I'm gonna become a meme.
I think I'm done.
No, I don't feel like I can win this one. I feel maybe like a joint winning. Like a draw?
I'll
Cool.
accept that.
Pleasure.
Well done.
Wow.